gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the universe. Here, in this great hall of the Signal Watch, are the most powerful forces of good ever assembled. Join us as we discuss all manner of topics across the multiverse of comic books, history, creators, storylines, movies, and more. The Signal Watch podcast presents Kryptonian Thought Beast, a comics podcast series dedicated to truth, justice, and peace for all mankind.
To turn back.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Signal Watch. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Staines, and with me today is...
I'm Danny Horn from Superheroes Every Day.
And as always, we'll have Danny describe Superheroes Every Day.
Yes, I will. Superheroes Every Day. It's a comedy blog about the history of superhero movies in detail and in order. So I'm talking about like Superman and Superman 2, currently just finishing up Swamp Thing. And for each movie, I talk about the characters and the structure of the movie and the plot and the actors, special effects and terrible costumes and like what else is happening in movies that year. So I get really into it. It's really funny and fun. And probably by the time you hear this, I will be done with Swamp Thing because I just have 5 more. And then I will be getting into Superman 3.
Wow. Okay.
Basically, it's like I did Superman and Superman 2, and then it's a long road to Batman from there. It's like 6 more movies before I don't even like Batman that much. Yeah. Hard road ahead, and I'm enjoying that very much.
Well, we'll probably drop this when you're wrapping up. We'll probably be dropping this in the next couple of days. So this being the 28th of August. It's a great blog, and it's also kind of the format we take for these particular podcasts. Usually, like if you're tuning in for like Simon or Justin or somebody else, you're probably used to kind of us going, yeah, it's good, and kind of like just talking about a movie or whatever. Here we talk a little bit. Here we go much more in chronological order through the thing. And it's a challenge for us today because for some reason, Danny and I high-fived and said, yeah, let's watch Inhumans on Disney+.
I'm so excited about the Inhumans. This is so great.
So I remember the Inhumans was coming, and I remember being so I'm not an Inhumans reader. But some of my earliest exposure to Marvel was a Spidey back issue, which had been reprinted in like a thing I picked up at the supermarket next to the Archie collections. And it was Medusa comes to New York, and I don't remember why, when she just basically like fucks everything up. It
doesn't matter. She has and she's just picking people up with her hair.
Yes.
Yeah, which is just a wonderful.
In love, she is great. She is just bossing everybody around and does not give a crap about anybody else's agenda. And she's like, "Bah, I'm done with you," like repeatedly. Yeah, and I was like, "This is the best character I've ever seen."
And her power is so great because it's basically like it's using this gorgeous flowing red hair, like it's Dr. Octopus's super strong octopus. She has an octopus basically on her head. And it just looks and it just gets as long as it needs to get in order to wrap itself around Spider-Man or whoever else she's messing with her tentacles.
And
and she just looks beautiful and fun.
Right. And I thought it was just this great character. So I picked up some Medusa stuff here and there. I even have a Medusa action figure sitting on my desk. But
you should shave her head.
But yes, but when you try and describe Medusa also to people who are unfamiliar, you sound like a lunatic.
Oh yeah,
which is
for
always
sure.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true for a lot of superhero stuff.
Yeah, I was trying to describe to Jamie because she walked in after Medusa had her incident when I was watching the show, and I was trying to explain what her power was, and Jamie's like, "Wait, what?" And of course, Jamie's thinking like shoulder length hair, as I'm describing.
Right? No, it's very very long and fluffy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and very expensive is what they found out in the Inhumans.
Oh my God.
So the Inhumans. Uh, the reason I want to talk about it is because I feel like I have a special connection to the Inhumans, because I actually watched it.
Oh, you're
I do have this.
soul.
I had this kind of unique relationship with this show because literally nobody else watched it except for me. It was made in 2017, which was only 5 years ago, but it feels like ancient history at this point.
It literally feels
Part
like
of that's part of that's COVID, but it's more that like WandaVision was the first Disney Plus show, and that came out in early 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And that feels like a real long time. Like there have been so many shows since then that it absolutely does not feel like, oh yeah, that was last year. And so like between WandaVision and what are we in She-Hulk, like there's like 10 TV shows that we're just getting constantly. So it feels like the Inhumans was way back in history. But yeah, it was 2017 was Guardians of the Galaxy 2, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Thor Ragnarok, which I feel like is sort of like peak MCU. Like that is really when the MCU was 100% working for me. I loved all three of those films. And also Wonder Woman came out that year, which is also great. And then Justice League, which is different. And so, but like I'm really, really into the Marvel movies at this point by 2017. I love them and I'm going to them all. And so I was like, okay, the Inhumans, I gotta take a look at this. And I was the only one. It's so terrible.
Did you go to the IMAX thing they did?
I did not. I wish I did. Oh, I wish I did. Yeah, they IMAX helped to fund the show. So that they could take the first 2 episodes and show it in IMAX theaters because they were super excited and proud about it. I don't know who went. I should have looked up like how many people went to that, but it's probably in the dozens. So an ABC did not like it, which is funny. I've read about like very early on, the ABC execs are like expressing concerns. And Marvel's like, yeah, no, we'll fix the effects. And it's like, this is not about the effects.
It's about the lack of effect. I mean, yeah, we'll get into that. But to me, the show kind of writ large feels like they have this kind of template from Lost of a big incident occurs in the pilot. And then you have a bunch of parallel storylines of loosely affiliated people. By the way, it's also in Hawaii and also will include 2 cast members from Lost.
Yeah.
And it
doesn't not you're right. Like I hadn't thought about that, but it's
so like a network TV show of maybe 7 years earlier in the post Lost era. Like
it's weird to say that like the Inhumans, as terrible as it is like Lost, but it's not. It's now that you say that, like it's not unlike Lost. But not good and not with like not well written and there are flashbacks, but it's not the same kind of like flashback structure that Lost had. It's just like every once in a while you have a useless flashback. But it is taking a group of terrible people and spreading them out and sending them all over Hawaii to run around after each other and do terrible things.
So in theory, we're going to talk through the first 4 episodes here. There's no way we're going to make it, so this will probably get cut short.
Yeah, no, we're going to do, I thought we would just say, we are doing an indeterminate number of episodes. We're going to see. I have a lot to say. 4 is the maximum for sure, but I've made a deal with Ryan that we're just going to start talking about it and we're going to see how that goes. And I agree with him that podcast should not be longer than 2 hours. So wherever the hell we are, this might end up being like a 2 podcast thing or more. It is hard to say. Ryan, if you just keep quiet for a second, then like we can get through this. I'm just kidding. I'm totally just kidding. I'm so sorry. Listeners, he just looked at me as if I was totally serious. Like, yes, this is your podcast and you just get to babble constantly. I am going to babble constantly though.
But the show, when it hit, I do remember. Well, first from the IMAX screening, which was like a week before it hit ABC.
Did you go?
No, partially because I think I was traveling, honestly, for work, or I might have gone. But
an excuse.
Well, I thought I was going to see Medusa on IMAX. I mean, that was a big selling point for me. And then it actually happened, and I saw the feedback on Twitter or whatever the next day, and people were like, "This thing was utter garbage."
Yeah,
and I was like, "What? Marvel made?" Because I think at this point the Netflix shows had already happened.
Yes, yeah,
and so I was like, "The bar has been placed."
I mean,
like,
this was more like they introduced a couple Inhuman characters in season 4 of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So this was more like, it wasn't like the Netflix like level. This was the like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. level, which is not that good.
And I honestly, I had watched maybe 4 episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. before I was like, I'm good. Like, I'm not that guy. I'm not watching this show.
Yeah, me too. Like, I watched all of Inhumans just because I thought it was amazing.
So let me ask something slightly related. Did you ever watch Krypton on Sci-Fi? So there was a show
Superman thing?
Yes. About this time that was filmed in Ireland, and it was Superman's grandfather, Sigel, which is the worst name for everyone to be saying over and over, but it is comic
Sigel.
Yeah.
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 Sigel.
And
that's shitty.
And the show I watched for like 2 episodes and was out, but it also had a pre Ted Lasso Hannah Waddingham in it.
Yeah.
And I recently realized like, and it's on like Tubi or something. So I went and watched a couple episodes. And I will have more to say about that when we start talking about the set design for Adelon and people living in completely unnatural surroundings.
Did it have a character named Shustar? That would have been amazing. Like Sigel and Shustar.
I will go back and check, but I don't.
I bet they do. Yeah. How could you resist doing that? That is amazing. Yeah. So Inhumans. Oh, so I should do a little. I don't know, Ryan, if you were plugged into this, but like why the Inhumans were a big deal specifically at this point was.
We should talk about it. I think I know. Yeah.
So the MCU was doing amazingly well. Like after the Avengers, they were basically everything they did was just like made a ton of money. And every new character that they added and brought in was just like bringing more excitement and love. They managed to get Spider-Man, which Sony owned. But they managed to negotiate to have Spider-Man in the MCU movies. But the X-Men and the Fantastic Four were owned by Fox. And Fox they were doing their own very successful X-Men series that actually, like Logan, the movie Logan, the X-Men movie, came out in 2017 and also did really well. So 20th Century Fox has no interest in giving the X-Men back to Marvel. And so they're like, okay, well, so we've got we have so many characters to play with, but we don't have the X-Men and people love the X-Men. So what we're going to do is build our own X-Men, because there's this other, group in Marvel that is the Inhumans, which is very similar kind of like, there are some that are already out in the world, but then you always, an individual person on Earth can like go through Terrigenesis and then gain powers. So it's very kind of like mutant-y. And so in 2013, in the comics, they brought the Inhumans back and they made a big deal about them for about a year and a half. Like they really tried to like have Inhuman series and like have them super involved in all of the like crossovers that were there at the time. And nobody cared. Like it just didn't actually work. because as we'll talk about, they're terrible characters. And so there was the idea that like, okay, we'll kind of like get people excited by having them in the comics. And then around 2014, Marvel said like, okay, yeah, no, we're going to make an Inhumans movie. And then like the air very slowly leaked out of that balloon. And after a while, they were like, well, maybe it'll be a movie, maybe it'll be a TV show. And it ended up being a TV show. And they were like, well, there it is.
Inhumans, everybody.
Inhumans, everybody. Yeah, and it just kind of flopped, and they had to wait until they had to go and buy Fox, basically, so that they could actually have the X-Men.
Yeah. I vaguely remember all of those pieces occurring. I remember the oh, Will, we don't, and I think someone explaining to me like why they were mucking about with the Inhumans so much.
Yeah.
And I kind of bought and thought, well, maybe. I mean, it's a very different concept, but maybe it'll end up working out. And then, okay, they're going to do this Inhumans TV show, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, they're going to have to throw so much money at this. It's going to be incredible. But
Yeah.
they've got the power of both ABC TV and Disney at this point, and Marvel. Maybe it'll be a go. Little did I know. I finally watched Inhumans maybe the first 2 episodes, maybe a month after we got Disney Plus. Like my curiosity finally got the better of me. I saw it was on there. And I made it through, I think, halfway through the second episode before I jettisoned.
That's the correct number of episodes. I mean, the reason why I'm so excited about doing this, and why I, for the last, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 episodes we've done, I've been like, Inhumans, we have to do Inhumans, is because I watched all 8 of them. I have had a shit ton to say about the Inhumans that I've had to keep bottled up for 5 years because nobody, like, I didn't have a forum for expressing my feelings about the Inhumans. So I've been bottling this up this whole time. I'm so excited.
So let's talk Inhumans.
Let's
go for it.
All right. The Inhumans are a group of spoiled people who make any situation that they walk into immeasurably worse. That is basically they do not really have powers in any kind of meaningful way. They think they do, they pretend to, but they are never in a situation where their powers are in any way useful, except for maybe like once with Gorgon. And they think that they are superior to humans. They all end up on Earth. And it turns out they are, not only are they not superior to humans, like they're below that line by quite a bit. They're stupid, they make bad decisions, and they make everything worse.
It is why most people have kind of stopped watching network television. Like you get a real feel for that watching this. Like I know there's all these people supposedly in flyover space who watch all those Chicago PD and fire and ambulance and janitorial services shows. I know that there's people who like it does not matter as long as it's on network TV, they're fine. But this has that kind of writing applied in a way that Marvel had absolutely not made their trademark and their bread and butter.
No, yeah.
And they had spent a lot of time within Marvel Studios making sure, like, what will the nerds complain about? Let's not do that. And this show takes that idea, throws it out the window, and says, for some reason, Inhumans is going to be the thing that gets like your weird aunt, who you see every 3 or 4 years, and then she says something racist. This is going to be her show. This is the one we're gonna. It's going to
be so dumb. Yeah. But she doesn't want to watch. She doesn't want to watch. Minions.
She didn't want to see it either.
Yeah.
And I was shocked by the decisions they made within the first like 30 minutes of this show. Just absolutely like take everything that works about this concept and hurl it out the window as hard as you can. It seemed to be what they were doing.
I think the one, like, if you want to boil it all down to one huge mistake, it is that like the reason why 2017 was so great for MCU was Guardians of the Galaxy, which is a very funny movie, Spider-Man Homecoming, which is a very funny movie, and Thor Ragnarok, which is like they're just doing comedies at this point, and they're amazing and people love them. And so they've learned at that point, like not every movie that they made after that is a comedy, but even in the more serious movies, people are making jokes. Like that's the Marvel style, really. More if you want to pin down the Marvel style in, to like the one thing that is always now part of the movie is it's always funny, at least for some of the time. The people have a sense of humor. And none of the people in Inhumans, like they totally did not learn that lesson from anything that was happening in the MCU. None of them make a joke. There's one character who is funny, and she is the only character I care about in the entire show.
Are you talking about the scientist?
Yes, Louise.
Okay.
I was going to say I didn't like any characters, and I was watching it again, and I was like, oh, I actually do like Louise. We will get to her.
Yeah.
They live on the moon. Meanwhile,
in theory, this show should take place on the moon.
On the moon, it does. At least it starts there.
It starts there. The entire show, in theory, what I thought I would get from an Inhuman show would be a show that took place on the moon.
But why? Why is that good?
Because that's where the Inhumans live.
Yeah.
The Inhumans don't live in Hawaii.
I don't understand why they live on the moon. They just do. They say at some point that like, oh, we
that's where Jack Kirby drew that.
We left Earth. No sense of like how they left Earth and under what circumstances and why they did that. But now they live on the moon and they don't like humans and they don't like Earth. But the place where they live is terrible. So they live under the whole dome thing is completely bizarre to me. Like they live under a dome. And so humans don't know. Nobody on Earth knows that they exist. And they call it a reflective dome, but a reflective dome would not be invisible at all.
It would show Earth right back.
Right. You would say, what is that huge reflective surface that I'm seeing? So they mean something completely different. I don't know what the word is for what they mean, but it's, it projects what people should see from the moonscape. On the inside, it looks like a small city with a sun and clouds and like its own ecosystem.
It's like that strip on Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah. And then once you come out of that dome, it looks like it's tiny, like a moon rover. So this is basically the first thing that happens is like a moon rover from Earth goes and bumps into this. And it looks like it's a tiny, tiny little thing. I have no idea how they have a sun and clouds of their own inside this dome, but they can't deal with themselves.
Nothing about moving to the moon makes sense, right? I mean, if we want to get like weird and like nerdy about it, but like clearly there's no nutrients in the soil. There's no water on the moon, although they claim later it's subterranean.
And they whine about it constantly.
Yeah, they hate living there. It's created a slavery-driven caste system.
Yes, they have 1,400 people.
It's the size of a mid-sized American high school, and somehow they've turned it into like what should be like a high school popularity system has become their caste system.
That is exactly. You are so right. Yes, that is exactly the feeling of it.
Where it doesn't make any sense that there hasn't been an armed revolt every 3 months within this place.
Yeah. So they do this thing called pterogenesis. Like when each child grows up, they get to, basically puberty, which is around like the mutant time. And they go through this gift ceremony called pterogenesis. And anybody who comes out of it who has a power is like free to hang around and do whatever they want. And anybody who doesn't gets sent to the mines. Yeah. Not clear what they're mining. What are they mining? What are they digging for down there? They're
moon
just
rocks.
Digging tunnels. Yeah, I don't know where they think they're going to get. And they're constantly complaining about like the fact that they don't have the resources to take care of everybody who's there.
Yeah.
And now that you've said high school, now like I think every time I talk about like Black Bolt as the king, and Medusa as it's actually Homecoming King and Homecoming
Absolutely,
Queen.
100%.
Yeah, that is exactly how they act.
It's the girl with the great hair. She's the homecoming queen.
Yeah, that is the amount of responsibility. So it's just this very science fiction, like lazy science fiction thing where they just like posit things and they say, and that's how they live. And the sets, like it's one of those kind of alien cultures where nobody sits down.
And that's where I wanted to get back to Krypton, because Krypton did exactly the same thing with the sets.
Yeah.
Where I was like, there's no chairs, there's no windows, there's no thinking being would design this or live this way. This is everything looks like basically an entryway to like an opera house or something.
You're having just like endless stand-up meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, like in the first Superman movie, it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
That there's like the Science Council, which is all these old men in reflective costumes huddling like in a bunch with no chairs or tables or furniture of any kind.
Because it's the only way wearing those drapey robes makes sense. You have to be standing up or you're going to realize these clothes are ridiculous. Like,
so the thing that is so funny about it is like both on Krypton and on the Inhumans, the idea is that these people are special and have better things than we have. They are superior to us. That is posited in the show, that the Inhumans are superior to us, and it is not questioned the entire time. This show is written by people who hate themselves so much that they think that these losers are superior to us, and they can't even invent a chair. So that's going to come up a lot. And so what the sets are, this is I think probably the immediate thing that there's two immediate things that kind of pissed everybody off. One was Medusa's hair, and then the sets. We'll do the sets. The sets on the moon are like brutalist concrete parking garage.
Yeah.
They live in a huge parking garage with no cars in it.
And I was trying to figure out like if it was like a real place, like if they were just in the lobby of like a planetarium or something.
Yes, yeah. It's just these big empty spaces. Oh, I do know the reason why everything is so tall is because of IMAX. They wanted to have a set that you could project on an IMAX screen. So they built everything way too tall.
So they built that. That was not a look, we're going to go to the planetarium and film this here. Oh my God.
It feels like that, but no. And they didn't really have a lot of budget, and they didn't have a lot of imagination about how they were going to use that budget. So yeah, they just create these like bare concrete spaces and with like weird angles in them, and they don't fill it with anything.
Yeah, there's no art, there's no culture.
Yeah, there's like 3 statues in the throne room and a throne, and that is literally the only that's the only thing in this what feels like an enormous like castle.
I can't figure out what the budget was for this thing, because in some
very low.
That's what I was always thinking.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, I guess that shot would have been expensive. I'm like, no, because there's so many helicopters in Hawaii. They just hired one of them to fly over the island and, whatever.
Oh, shots of Hawaii? Yeah, no. They can do Hawaii.
Yeah.
The thing that I think is amazing is Crystal's apartment. So Crystal is the princess. And she has she is sent to her room for, I don't know, 2.5 episodes. And her room is a very small 1-bedroom apartment. Someplace sunny. And there's almost nothing in it. Like she has a sofa to sit on, but that's all. And then there's like some serving stuff. And then there's like shelves on the wall with really nice, like recessed lighting. And like a box, like some, something on each one. That's like, one is like a bottle and one is a box or whatever. And it's from Urban Outfitters. I don't know what they're doing. There's nothing there. It feels like when the realtor like stages a house that he's trying to sell, he like brings in like room fill, like, real basic like furniture and a couple of books or something to make you think that this is a place where people live. That is all they've done. And they could have given, like, I don't care how low your budget is, $500. Give it to anyone. Tell them go to some thrift stores in LA and just pick up some stuff that looks weird. And then we'll scatter that around this terrible little apartment, and it will at least look like there's some kind of alien culture or something.
And part of what's so vexing about the design is it's like maybe the 5th Jack Kirby adaptation by this point, and like no one will touch Kirby. Like no one.
Thor Ragnarok actually came out the same year and actually did try in a lot of the design to like include a lot of Kirby touches. That's probably the most
two
Kirby
Fantastic Four movies that ran the opposite.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
that ran the opposite direction from Kirby. And I'm trying to think of what else. I guess the Thor stuff looked more like Walt Simonson before Ragnarok, but it was just like watching this. I don't really know what they were thinking. I mean, the set has one thing that they went all in on, which was a perfectly spherical interior of a room.
Right. Which isn't a bad set. Yeah.
No, but I don't know what it was supposed to be either.
I actually do, because I read about it. It's so stupid.
Tell me, please.
It's the one place. So the idea is, I can't believe I'm saying this. The idea is that the dome is actually like cone shaped. And then that room is like circular, kind of spherical. And if Black Bolt like talked, then all of that energy and power would like sweep up into the top of the cone, and it wouldn't destroy.
It would have been neat if anybody would have said that.
But it wouldn't, because that's dumb too. Everything they did was dumb. It is an interesting looking set.
Yeah.
Which they used several times. But no, none of that makes sense. And so their relationship. So we start out, this is episode 1 now. We start out with this terrible family. There are, 6 characters?
Like that, yeah.
And so there's Black Bolt, Medusa, Karnak, Gorgon,
Maximus.
Crystal, and Maximus.
Yeah.
I think it's like, so 6 main characters in this royal family. All of them are terrible. All of their powers are useless. They live on the moon, and what they know and don't know about Earth is extremely confusing.
We know they get cable if they have like the 2 magic girls looking at the scrying pool.
Yeah, but they only watch like disasters.
So
the funny thing is, so like they're saying, "Oh, we're so superior," whatever. And they look at Earth, which is showing like local news of fires and things. With chyrons, and they're like, "Oh, that place looks terrible." But once they go to Earth, they all go to Hawaii, which is gorgeous. And the people there know how to swim. So Black Bolt is the king, which I don't understand in the comic books, and I 100% do not understand in the movie. His power is that if he talks, his voice is so loud that it will destroy whatever's in front of him. And so I believe there's a flashback where I believe he kills his parents.
Yeah, he vaporizes his parents, yeah.
Yeah, by saying like he's like a teenager. He has this power now, and he says like, "Why?" And that like makes his parents into like Nagasaki, like shadows on the wall.
The wall's fine, by the way, unscratched.
Well, it's all dirty now. With the parents, the ashes of the parents. So he can't speak. So he spends so that's his only power. And he knows how destructive it is. So he never, ever speaks. He doesn't speak the entire course of the movie, which means he doesn't use his superpower. It is unusable. And it permanently disables him because he can't talk. He's actually less able than a normal human who I can't blow stuff up with my voice, but at least I can goddamn talk. I do it all the time.
And
as you can see.
Yeah, they cast a kind of pre-fame Anson Mount in this role.
Oh, and he's a problem.
And he yeah, all he's able to do is kind of give everyone the hard stare like that.
And do
Clearly,
terrible things with his eyebrows.
yeah, and
We're
it's
gonna get into this later because it's not like
yeah.
episode 2. Oh, okay, we'll get to episode
But
2.
yeah, we're introduced to he and
But he
Medusa
can't
while they're making
talk.
sweet love
Yeah.
because it's network TV. That's we're gonna they're sexy because of this, but you'll never see them touch each other again on this show.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
So that's Black Bolt. There's Medusa, who's the queen, the homecoming queen, and we've talked about her. She's supposed to have this amazing hair, which she has for a couple of scenes in the first episode, but it was too expensive.
So this is kind of the thing with the show. And I warned Danny I was going to go off at some point about this, and I now seems as good a time as any.
Do it. I'm here.
The show is so low budget it never should have occurred, right? And this is when you really realize this is you're watching Serinda Swan, who had appeared on Smallville as Zatanna.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. And she looks great on that show.
Mm-hmm.
And this, they take her, put her in a kind of weird outfit, which is kind of Medusa adjacent from the comics, and then put her in what is clearly the cheapest Halloween wig anyone could possibly go and find. Like if you were trying to embarrass
it's
somebody,
super flat.
It's so
is
weird.
The weird thing. I mean, so she has to have very, very long straight hair, which is not easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
But the wig that they use like just lies flat against her head. And like we were talking about, like the thing about Medusa, like the thing that makes that image interesting is that her hair is all fluffy.
Yeah.
Like, and has like amazing like so much volume that, she can actually like pick people up with it.
But they never animate it. It's just
they do a little bit
eventually, but
they do
for
like
most of the shot she's in this what's clearly a badly dyed wig that they somehow assembled that looks super fakey. It doesn't look anything like actual human hair.
No.
And then the color is kind of like somebody went to the Halloween store and got some hair dye colors because it's not naturally, which is fine. It doesn't need to be it's
a weird deep ginger red.
Yeah. And but even at that, there's like some weird texturing I think they tried to do with various colors. And then it only hangs at a very straight down at a very cut off, like just above her knees, which is also not long enough to do what they want to do with her hair.
Right.
And it looks like that was as long as the wig was. and they're like, well, we ran out of hair.
It was the biggest wig they had.
Yeah.
Because who would want a wig? Who would want a wig that looks like that, period? Yeah. But who would want a wig that looked like that was any longer than that? And so I believe that they do. There's one scene, but so the problem is that it was very expensive. And this is actually a thing that I read is that they did the trailer. They put out the trailer, and the trailer was savaged by everybody who looked at it. And one of the things they had a problem with was Medusa's terrible hair, and that was a point of contention between Marvel and ABC. And Marvel ended up spending an additional $100,000 on Medusa's hair, like an extra $100,000 on trying to make it look like something. Yeah, it doesn't show up on the screen.
No.
So what they do is you have one scene of her actually like moving her hair around and doing something to Maximus, and then Maximus shaves it all off, and she has a bald head or like a very like closely cropped head for the entire rest of the series.
So we talk about the 6 people.
Yeah.
So now we have a guy who can't talk,
can't use his power.
Queen who's had her hair taken away. So now you also have to look at Serinda Swan.
Can't use her power.
Yeah, can't use her power. So no power there. You have a guy, Karnak, whose whole thing is that he's real smart, which should have been easy. And instead they go, he bonked his head in episode 2 or 3. And now he's
his
dumb.
Power doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Then you have a guy who's
his power is like, yeah. Like super strong.
Yeah. Then you have the guy who's supposed to have his power is hoofs. And he constantly, and depending on which shot, does not have hoofs. He has feet.
Oh, he does.
No,
he has hooves.
They cut to wide shots, and he's just a dude in boots. I guarantee you. Look at shots.
You would have to show me that. All right.
When he's fighting the guys in the big fight scene, when he first is there,
then he has hooves for sure.
He has regular human feet.
All right, now I have to go and
It cuts back and forth between when he walks onto the beach, regular human feet.
You know what?
Do the CG.
I believe you. I believe you. Because he's walking on sand is actually like, so I believe you in general anyway, because you're a believable person.
Thank you, Danny. You're the first person to agree with that on this podcast.
Yeah, and his scenes, once he gets to Earth, are all like on a beach on sand. Yeah. And I can't imagine that the hoof like costumes, like it's possible that he is just not able to walk on sand. So why he spends all that time on sand? It's like, that's a choice. It's like the writers don't understand that there's such a thing as choices. Like they just put themselves in these circumstances. Constantly.
Or the costume people could have built something that covered him all the way down that would enable his feet to still exist, but you can see his freaking foot-shaped shape walking. Anyway.
So Gorgon is, so he...
And then I have no idea, after
not very bright.
30-something years of reading comics, 40 years of reading comics, I could not tell you today what Crystal's powers are.
It is some kind of zappy thing. She can put her hands together. I know that.
Yeah.
And she can go boom, and then and throw them forward. And then some kind of energy electric white thing comes out of it and has very little impact on what it touches. It is not like Black Bolt, if he whispers, can blow through a wall. Crystal, apparently at like the height of her powers, can maybe make somebody drop something.
That seemed to be it. Like I was like, is it cold? Like I couldn't literally figure out what she was on about by the fourth episode. And I was like, oh, the show's finally going to tell me what her power is. Because in the FF comics, when I've read her, she's always just standing around like, oh, Johnny.
Yeah.
So I've never.
So she's a pretty thin girl, blonde girl, with some paint on her long blonde hair. And that is who she is.
I feel very bad for the actor who they hired, who was not ready for whatever this was.
She's very cute. I don't have a problem with her.
She never feels to me like, occasionally Serinda Swan feels to me like she knows she's playing a queen.
Yeah.
Crystal always feels to me like
a college student.
Yeah, or a high schooler. Like I'm a pissy high schooler.
Yeah.
Who is, because they give her things to do where she just will not listen to anybody ever. Like that's her thing. Is if you were told her like, if you take a left and you will drive off a cliff, she's gonna like veer that car left and take everyone with her. She does not care.
Nope.
And she's kind of the reason everyone's scattered all over the island, because she keeps sending her dumb dog all over the place.
Which is insane.
And Lockjaw could have been charming on this show.
I thought Lockjaw was okay. So that's the one thing that they spent effects money on. I think he's cute. I don't have any problem at all with Lockjaw. He's a huge dog. He's the size of a hippopotamus, basically.
Yeah.
He is Crystal's dog for some reason. No explanation of like where he comes from or what he is, or is there another one like this? Why does he have teleport powers? Nothing is ever explained about the world. Like they're world building without building the world. He's entirely CGI, and when you touch him, he can like zip you to Hawaii and then zip back without you. And
not I think a bad power to have if you're going to.
No, I think he's okay. He's a dog though, and he's dumb, and he's the only one that uses. And it's real not clear how anybody else ever gets to and from the Earth to go back to the moon. But that's him.
Yeah, I had some big questions about that when we got into episode 4.
Yeah, there's a lot about like how does this work? So before, I guess like the important thing really for this first episode is the gift ceremony, the Encanto gift ceremony. Mm-hmm. But before we get to that, there's one thing I wanted to point out about Karnak, Karnak is Miles from Lost, with a bald head and gross tattoos on his face. His power is to see the weakness of anything, like to be able to predict when he looks at something like, how is this going to fail? Which comes to him very easily because everything he does fails. And the way that they establish this character is that the terrible royal family is all at lunch. And there's a waitress who's filling up his glass, and she's kind of like looking at him and flirting at him. This young blonde woman who's very pretty, and he looks at her, and they have this like a little bit of eye contact, and then he says, "I wrote this down. 2.5 days. First day, I'd be captivated by your beauty. Oh, the fun we'd have. Second day, it would start to bother me that you're a servant. And then I discovered that you have dependency issues. You chew with your mouth open. By the second afternoon, I'd want to kill you." And she's like, "What the and she walks away, and he's like, "It's sad but true." Which is vile.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to come up with that word. I was like, there must be a word that describes what that is. And I believe after much thought, the answer is vile. Like, he's disgusting. Like, oh, the fun we'd have, for one thing, just makes me nauseous just at the start, because it's like, oh, you'd have such a good time. Because he says it like, oh, you'd have such a good time with me. Like, he's the good one. He's not that attractive of a man. And then it's all him. It's like and then I would be bothered by the fact that you're a servant and you chew with your mouth open. By the second afternoon, I'd want to kill you, he says. Dude, that's a you problem. That has nothing to do with her. That is you wanting to murder somebody because a very pretty girl, because she has dependency issues.
This is one of those places where I was really curious if ABC was in charge of this or if Marvel was in charge of this, because it certainly didn't feel like anything that would have come out of Marvel Studios in 2017.
No.
And I can see TV writers who weren't really familiar with how comics worked, or even like what the cultural conversation was. Like, I can see people like he thinks he's kingly, he's royalty, right. So but that particular bit of dialogue, and I think vile is the right word, it does not set him up as someone who's like, oh, he's kind of eccentric but still right. Like, it's like,
no, he's not likable in any way, and that kills
a bad human.
Yeah, that kills all interest that you have in him. I get what they were trying to do in that scene. The synopsis for that scene is, we're going to show off what that Karnak has the power to like preview things and find the weaknesses and how something is going to fail. And so he's going to do that by talking to a waitress about how their relationship is going to fail, which is potentially fine, actually. Like, you could write that scene in a way that is not disgusting. Like, yeah, it I would say, like, in the first episode, like, the sets are terrible, Medusa's hair is terrible, but like, the worst thing in that episode is Karnak doing that to the waitress.
Yeah. We should talk about Maximus, because
Maximus, yeah.
Maximus is never wrong on this entire show in the 4 episodes I've watched. It's insane watching this and going, this guy's the bad guy. This guy's the only one who's said a word that makes sense.
That I agree with. Let's explain this to the people. Maximus is Black Bolt's brother, and he does not have any powers, and it makes him very unhappy. In fact, when he went through Terrigenesis, which is the thing where you go into the Terrigenesis machine, and your mutant power is revealed. What they found was that his genes turned him entirely human. So now he's not an Inhuman because he has human genes and not Inhuman genes. And that is shameful. And he has had to live with that.
Yep.
And so the whole plot of this series is that Maximus wants to bring down this terrible society and actually like do something useful for the people.
it takes no convincing of the people on this, by the way. Like,
right, because everyone basically, like everyone that we see is one of the like low caste people who have to work in the mines and have no food. Maximus is saying, so like, what are things that we agree with? The royal family is completely corrupt and selfish and stupid. Correct. The way that we treat the caste system is completely unfair. Obviously correct. We should like not have to live in this terrible like resource poor environment. We should take these 1,400 people and go live in Hawaii where it's gorgeous and everyone would be able to get jobs. Correct on all accounts.
But the music keeps telling you he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
That's the only cue you have that this guy is not the hero of the story.
Well, and he's a fascist. Like he does do, he's a fascist dictator, and so he does fascist dictator
He's
things.
just doing what has to. You got to break a few eggs.
Agree. I totally agree. I know it's so funny because he does he's suppressing the news. He's lying to people. He is killing anybody who he considers disloyal.
Wait, let's back up because
yeah.
do you want to talk about how he kills the council yet, or do we have to hold off for that?
Is that
that's way late? That's like episode 4.
Yeah, no, let's not talk about that yet.
Okay, I got opinions about that.
Yeah,
I'm still on Team Maximus at that point.
You know what we should talk about right now, actually. Before the coup, this is the most amazing thing, and I am the loneliest person on this planet, and this is why. Is that I realized that there's the Terrigenesis ceremony where they go into the Terrigenesis machine and figure out the powers is the gift ceremony from Encanto. And Maximus is Mirabel. I sent, I'm sure, a very cryptic text to Ryan this week that just said Maximus equals Mirabel. I did not explain anything else. But I don't know what you made of that, probably.
I saw it when I was doing something else, and I kind of was like, "What?" And then I got back and looked at my computer, and I don't know if you saw my response. It was just, "Oh no," because you're 1,000% right.
It's so weird. They have a scene that is specifically the gift ceremony, and all the royal family is there with all their powers, and then Maximus is in the back, like Mirabel, being like, "Well, this isn't entirely fair to everybody." And then they say to him, exactly the way they do to Mirabel, is like, "Oh, I hope this gift ceremony goes okay. I mean, not like the last one that sucked. That was you, Maximus." They literally do that.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. And so I can't chalk that up to coincidence. Anyone that I've talked to, which at the moment, to be honest, is actually just my husband. I've told my husband about this. And he's like, "Okay, yeah, I guess." But I'm like, no, you don't get it. Like, because the thing is, like, if Encanto came first and then the Inhumans, it would be obvious. Everyone in the world would be like, "Oh my God, they stole that plot point from Encanto." But it's the other way around. Inhumans was 2017. Encanto came out, what, 2021?
Well, this is comics accurate. I mean, this is Maximus's deal in the comics.
But it came out like 4 years before. And so the only conclusion that I can draw is that somebody involved in Encanto has watched the Inhumans and was somehow inspired by this scene.
I could do this better. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's insane. That's the reason why I'm the loneliest person in the world, is no one will ever believe me when I say, and I was like, "No, that's stupid. That can't be true." And then I was like, "Oh, but they both work for Disney." And I bet that they had a screening of the first episode of Encanto that everyone at Disney went to. I mean, I'm sorry, but when the first episode of the Inhumans, as if there's a difference. I honestly believe that they were somehow inspired by this Inhuman scene, and that's how they did the gift ceremony. No one will ever believe me. I will go to my grave.
Well, so there's a concept in science called, oh my God, it's not parallel evolution, but the basic idea is like a brontosaurus has a long neck, a giraffe has a long neck.
Right. And they both got there. Yeah.
And they both got there kind of doing the same thing. And
yeah, you get hands. Like everything on every life form that actually gets anywhere on Earth has hands.
right. And so I think it's one of those things when you start talking about a story, and it's how you end up with, why is the second movie in a superhero series for a long time them losing their power? Right. I mean, it was
because it's
always
the obvious plot point. Yeah.
right. Yeah. And that, I think it's to show, we're going to do a story, and you get to the point where you're doing the setup of, well, they're the one person who seems like they're not special, but they are like, we've already done the thing of like, everybody's special. That was the Incredibles.
Now let's get the one person who isn't special.
Yeah. Now
and make him really pissed.
Right. So but at the same time, the whole story of Encanto was them all losing their powers, right? Like kind of bit by bit. Wasn't the sisters like?
I mean, there were cracks. Not.
Things were like going
really
wrong and stuff.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I watched Encanto, just the one time. But
you're seeing this as convergent evolution, that like you get to the same place by talking about people who are special.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that there's certain rules that end up getting put down as far as the limitations of what happens when you start working in the Hollywood version of comic book storytelling, which is like you have to have everything in this kind of like closed loop that I always talk about.
This Ryan, I love you, but this is why I'm going to die alone. Like, I am seriously like,
the thing is, I think you're not wrong.
Once I realized this, I was like, oh my God, Maximus is Mirabel. I realized that like, I'm going to spend the rest of my life telling people this. And like 0 people have watched the Inhumans. And so no one is going to even know what I'm talking about. But definitely no one will ever believe me that like somebody working for I believe that with all of my heart. I will never stop believing it. And
there's no reason to think that you're wrong.
I will go to my grave.
I want to go and look at the 2 IMDb entries and look at who wrote these things and kind of where they were in 2017.
I'm sure, all right.
Because that's my hard to imagine. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my Encanto thing. And so Maximus then is like, oh, I guess I had the biggest loser gift ceremony. And then these other, and so
by the way, what good does I love a flyer. It's
nothing.
It's like we can't. Oh
yeah, what good does the flyer do? Yeah, So the girl who comes out of the Terrigenesis machine, which I can't say without putting like air quotes around it. The girl, has mutated, and now she shows her power, and she has she's a very pretty girl with straight hair. She's a homecoming queen, and she has very pretty blue butterfly wings. And Gorgon, the fucking idiot, says like, oh, she's a flyer. I love flyers, which is like, yeah, where is she going to fly to? How does that flight help? Which now brings up the real like crazy point that Maximus, this is why we're on Team Maximus, is like, supposedly it's not just the royal family that has powers. Like everybody in the city, like at least half of the people in the city, they don't actually say like what the percentage is of like people who have powers and people who don't, but like the people who don't live in the lower caste and have to work like in shadow and in the tunnels and live miserable lives. But clearly, like, whatever it is, the 30% of this population that has magical power, like supernatural powers, don't do dick to help out the lower caste people. Like, there must be somebody who like produces food or digs tunnels really fast so we don't have to have, like, you really like you have it's 1,400 people. If you have like 300 people each with their own special supernatural power, nobody can dig a tunnel. Nobody's strong enough. Like Gorgon is supposed to be real strong with his hooves. Why do you need to dig tunnels? Let him take a minute. It makes no sense. And we see all these people standing around, like the genetic council, like they have all these like science council meetings with their terrible like tunics on, their robes. Those people apparently do not have powers. We never see any of them using a power that might be useful. Like, I don't know, putting up a shield around themselves would be useful at a certain point. Flying away, turning into like, having tattoos on their body and snakes just like shoot out of their body. Like there's so many possibilities for useful things that this entire civilization of super mutants could do to help each other, and they do not.
No. They don't even do. Occasionally you'll see someone in the background who has like a little like Star Trek makeup on their face,
Yeah,
or
something
whatever.
a little nose.
But
There's
that's
one
about
guy.
it.
There's one guy in the first episode. This is why the first episode is so hard. They like there's something happened on Earth that they want to see. They sent somebody down to like collect somebody on Earth, and they got killed. And so the writers like want the royal family to know that happened. And so they call in this guy. They're like, bring in, I forget what his name is, bring in Andrabaja. And so a guy comes in, and he's a human looking dude, but his eyes are like glass bug eyes. They're enormous and circular like Coke bottles, which is probably what they are. And there's like some light behind it. And so then he is able, through these terrible, like you look at him and he's a monster. Like he looks like a monster. And they just use him as their audio visual system.
Yeah.
Like they call him in. He's the IT guy. And like he projects magically into the air a vision of what happened to Triton when he was on Earth and how he got
just
killed.
happens to be the footage you just watched.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he just shows that. And no one says a word to him. Nobody says thank you for sharing your gift with us. They just talk about something else. And it's just like, it feels to me like the Flintstones. It's like one of the, like you open the cabinet under the sink and there's the pig who's the garbage disposal, or like the bird with a beak that you put down and that's the record player needle.
I was going to say, yeah, that guy needed to look at the camera and go, it's a living.
Exactly. Insane. But those are the only things we see is like the royal family with their terrible, unworkable powers. And we see the AV Flintstones guy, and we see the girl with butterfly wings which is not useful at all, but everybody thinks she's super special.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the terrible world that they live in.
It's hell. I mean, I did remember what they're mining for is the Terrigen, so they can make more Inhumans with projector eyes, I guess.
Who don't do anything and don't help.
Yeah. It's a very strange closed loop of a community.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't join cults, I guess is what we're saying.
Yes, it is a cult. Yeah.
Oh, it's 1000% a cult.
Yeah. So we're almost done with episode 1. But like the reason why we've been basically like you and I have hardly really talked about anything that happened, because what happens is not important. Like what's important is the vision of this world that they're giving us on the moon. And as you and I have pointed out, in every way, this is a terrible place for them to live. It's a terrible way to live. It's a terrible way to treat each other. And the rest of the show does not question that in any way.
In a profound way, it doesn't ever suggest that anything's wrong.
The point of view, as far as the show is concerned, is like, this is the thing that we have to save. Like, it's a problem that Maximus takes over and banishes all the royal family. That makes him evil and a traitor and a fascist dictator. And what we want, like the whole drive of the show, is to get Black Bolt back to the moon so that he can be the king again.
Right.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. There's no, and that's when I think like this is a show that was not even aimed at the discerning Marvel fan. Like it was aimed at people who are like eating Frito pie. What's on tonight, honey? Yeah, I don't know.
Just not really thinking about it.
Yeah, and they're like, okay, I get it. Good guy, bad guy. That's as much as I have to know, because whenever they play this, ambient, sad
bad music,
that's the bad guy. Yeah. But that guy who never talks and just hard stares at everybody, like he's got the best acting job in the world. He didn't have any lines to memorize, but he's listed first as who this is starring. You
know what? I just remembered there's something that I didn't tell you that I learned. I learned, by the way, I learned all of these things from the Wikipedia page. I I shouldn't say that. I should sound like I've done a lot of research. I haven't. Anson Mount, who I am told, I don't watch Star Trek Strange New Worlds, but I am told by my husband who does that he's excellent. Great.
Mhm.
I am okay with that. He's terrible in this, like unbelievably bad at this. And and they didn't do auditions for Black Bolt
Hmm.
because he doesn't have any lines. So they thought that they didn't have to do auditions for the main
What?
for the main character of the show. They didn't do auditions because he doesn't have any lines. What would he do in the audition?
You could have him react to a variety of situations and
Which is the
see.
thing that he does very, very badly. Isn't that the craziest thing you ever heard? Like, and so that is, I feel like that kind of bookends our episode 1 coverage is just like that's how these people are thinking about their art.
Yeah, yeah. It kind of makes sense when you say it out loud, like how this show's put together. My belief, firm belief on this is the opportunity to live in Hawaii for a few months a year on ABC and
Yes.
Disney's dollar was
Yeah.
so hard to pass up. Everything
Yeah.
else got shelved.
Yeah.
Um, and
Hawaii is gorgeous.
yeah, who wouldn't want to live on somebody else's dime in Hawaii for a
Yeah.
while? Um, but I don't. I I know that this was kind of the end of the career for like Jeff Loeb after this was kind of out at
Yeah.
Marvel. And he'd really been the head. He was supposed to be doing a Hulk TV show and all this other stuff. He did get the Netflix stuff off the ground, but this was really the thing that was kind of the end for him.
Yeah.
And I remember being concerned at the time because I didn't know what, because I knew they were going to keep trying to do TV, but then you see this and you're like, yeah, you got to show that guy the door. Like this isn't okay.
This is not working.
Yeah, I mean,
This is
you have this
just not working.
amazing brand that
Yeah.
has all the movies you talked about
Yeah.
at the top of its game,
Yeah.
and then they're like, oh, by the way, we're going to also roll out,
They
the most
just
mediocre possible
yeah.
of all TV shows.
Oh, you know what? I didn't mention this either. The showrunner for this was Scott Buck, who was the showrunner for Iron Fist, which was the one Netflix Marvel show that everyone hated.
Yeah, I've never even
That's
seen
the
it
dude.
because the
So that
yeah.
makes sense, right? So with Marvel TV at the time, like Disney Plus, I feel like I know that some of these shows that they're making are good and some of them are not as good. And maybe not as many good ones as you might hope. But at least like they've got the Marvel people in charge of it. Like the Marvel people have decided, the Marvel Studios people have decided, like, okay, we're gonna make TV now, and we're gonna make it Marvel Cinematic Universe style, and that kind of at least base level of quality, and then you build from there. At the time, it was like there was the Netflix shows, Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, and Terrible Line Fist. And that was a certain like level of quality that people tended to like. And then there's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was the like lower class, lower quality one that was on ABC. But those were like the two options. Like if you were gonna do something, it would either be that like ABC quality or the Netflix quality. Now they've discovered, like now that they've actually started paying attention with the Disney Plus, like that's a huge step up from Netflix.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Netflix, it made sense when I was watching. I was like, yeah, Daredevil is basically a karate guy. You don't need to show
Yeah.
much here. He doesn't have to fly around. With Luke Cage, he just has to get shot.
But it's a good, like they're good, like well written shows
yeah.
that
So
understand who
they
the characters
focused on
are and what they're
character.
doing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then so that level just doesn't exist at this point in 2017. That doesn't start to exist as far as the viewers are concerned until 2021 when WandaVision comes out and like blows us away.
So we I don't know if we actually mentioned, we said like Medusa loses her hair, and I don't even remember if that was episode 1 or 2, but basically
that's one. So he grabs Medusa.
and he
Maximus grabs
literally
Medusa.
pulls out like Norelco.
Yes.
Like there's nothing sci-fi about it. There's no
It
like,
is
let me use my
Kmart.
laser trimmer.
Yeah.
It looks just like the $40 trimmer I got off Amazon.
Which is what it is.
Yeah.
And then he takes it, and it's a big scene for them to do it with that razor. You get a lot of close-ups of him like shaving off all of her hair in order to render her powerless and make her so much less expensive for the show. Because from that point on, you don't have to animate her hair anymore. It's not even questioned.
And you have this like lovely girl who like, look, there's different people who have different shaped heads. Like,
wait.
And like,
it did not occur to me that was a question.
Like she looks like a plucked chicken. Like, and it's one of those things you're not going to know till you shave someone's head, right? You're just not.
What are they actually going to look like?
Right. I mean, you have the woman who's in like the first Star Trek, right?
Yeah.
She looks, amazing with no hair. You have the all of the women in Black Panther.
Yeah. Who
they
look fantastic. Yeah.
Who look beautiful.
Yeah.
She looks like a goose who's been defeathered. Like she's still got all the makeup on it, but she looks like a very stressed out college professor is what she looks like.
She does. It's not a bald head. We should make that clear.
Right.
He doesn't completely shave it like in Black Panther where they're all just completely bald and they look fantastic. It's just very, 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 very short. It's like the shortest like crew cut you could possibly give a woman.
They put it on the one on the Clippers.
Yeah, exactly. And it's that same like super dark red, not like supernatural, like not natural looking red.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to look at. And that is when you notice her outfit.
Yeah.
So I think officially, officially, I think I'm going to say, so that is the end of our discussion of episode 1.
Yes.
Just in case that's a moment that needs to be.
Well, we have to talk about it. I mean, because if this show were better,
no, that was good.
And I hate to say it, I hate to use the word, but we'd be talking about a mythological, like the rape of Medusa or something, right?
Yeah.
If this were like, we'd be like, oh my God, it's this traumatic moment. But instead, you're like, are those?
Well, thank God she's
Norelco rape. Like,
well, also thank God she's not wearing that terrible wig anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the moment. That's what happened.
Yeah. So we're treated then in the next episode to the Queen of Attila on the moon, of Adelon, sorry.
Looking terrible,
and then taking a tourist bus for like half an episode.
so just to just put a period at the end. So that's episode 1. Episode 2, it gets so much worse.
Inside myself and see my heart is black. No colors anymore. I want them to turn black. I want to see it painted black.
So episode 2 is what I would consider to be the Inhumans Go Hawaiian. I mean, it really has a kind of like the Brady Bunch are going to find a little, statuette. Like it has that kind of vibe to it.
It really does. Yeah. It's like Lost if Lost didn't have like any tension or emotion.
Yeah. So we just talked about
music.
Like how the character was really what drove the Netflix shows and kind of the Marvel stuff when we get into like WandaVision.
That is not the case here.
You'd never really know who anybody is who's an Inhuman. Like kind of.
Oh, you know them. You know them. They're just hateful and awful.
Well, they
every single one of them.
They feel like bullet points of characters in a way. It's like what are the concerns of Karnak? What are the concerns of Gorgon?
Oh yeah,
I kind of have an idea of what their jobs are,
and how they're not fulfilling them at the moment.
Yeah.
So the thing that happens, like the structure, actually, I think the structure of the show, I will criticize literally every part of this production. The one thing that I think actually works is like at the end of episode 1, Lockjaw, the teleporting dog who can apparently teleport back and forth between Earth and the moon, which is striking. During the coup, manages to carry all of the royal family to different places on Earth, which is, and all of them in Hawaii, because that's where they were filming. And it's very strange that like Crystal, it's Lockjaw's Crystal's dog, and she keeps telling him like, take Medusa to where Black Bolt is, and take like Karnak to where Gorgon, not like she's telling him to like go to the same place. He absolutely does not do that. He scatters them around Hawaii, somewhere in the vicinity of Honolulu, basically. But then like what happens is then each character has like their own little track. And so that's the thing that I think works is that sort of over the course of the episode, you can see like, here's what Black Bolt is doing. And then here's what Medusa's doing. Here's what Karnak is doing. Here's what Gorgon is doing. And then Crystal is still on the moon with Maximus.
Right. You've got to have your POV character so you can kind of justify some of that stuff for a bit, I guess, because that doesn't last all that long.
No, it doesn't work. They're just trying to keep Crystal contained for another episode or so.
Yeah.
So the structure I think is pretty sound, because then you're kind of watching each of them like exploring in their own way and coming across different like groups of people. The problem is every thread involves the terrible Inhuman meeting people, and those people instantly fall in love with the Inhuman and are happy to risk their own lives for this terrible Inhuman character.
Yeah, we hadn't talked about Luis really yet.
We're getting to Louise. No, Louise is coming. Let's talk about Black Bolt first, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hawaii is beautiful, by the way. I've said that, but like I think it's such a weird thing. Like the only thing the only other thing that works on the show is that Hawaii is just gorgeous, and so you're looking at it. But it's so funny that they're on the moon in this terrible, terrible city, and they look at the Earth and they're like, oh, the Earth is terrible. And like Hawaii is an objectively beautiful place. It's gorgeous. Everyone they run into is incredibly friendly, like unbelievably friendly, and helpful. It's a gorgeous place. It is clearly better than your terrible moon city. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, I mean, the closest I can compare it to, and this is going to seem like a stretch, but I lived in Phoenix for 4 years, which is barren, and it was hot and inhospitable. And like, I'm from Texas, and I still think Arizona was like infinitely a more dangerous place to live.
Really?
Oh yeah, because every bug there can kill you, and it's just it's right. A horrible, horrible place. Evolution.
Why do we live here?
Yeah, humans should not be in Arizona, southern Arizona. So when we flew back to Houston the first time, where my parents were living at the time, the awe at the green, and what that meant about life that you were looking at, of like this place is verdant and alive, and things grow here, and things are supposed to be here, which you don't get that feeling when you're out at 3 p.m. in Phoenix, Arizona. Like you're like, nothing should be outside right now.
Or Anchorage. Like I had a little vacation in Anchorage, which is gorgeous, but not a place that humans should live. Like that was where I learned like what cold actually was. I was like, oh yeah, cold. No, I've been cold before. I lived on the East Coast in like New Jersey and Philadelphia. Like, no, I know what winter's like. And then I got to Anchorage. I was like, oh, I didn't even know. I've never even felt cold. In like Anchorage cold is like, it's actually trying to kill you. And you have to like put a scarf and a hat around your face because every patch of exposed skin is going to hurt. Like that's how great. Like, but it was a fantastic vacation. I had a really good time, by the way. But it definitely, like, I was amazed that humans live here. And so the Inhumans is like the people in Anchorage being like, oh yeah, Portland would really suck. What are you talking about? It's clearly so much better. It's not an environment that's actively trying to kill you. Like the moon is. You insane freaks. Yeah, so here they are in Hawaii. And honestly, and so let's get to Black, because this is still, oh my God, the thing that's, so Karnak's waitress thing was vile. Not actually, I don't know if I said in the last episode whether that's actually the worst thing in the show, because we're about to talk about the actual worst thing in the show.
Are you talking about the suit?
I'm talking about everything that happens to Black Bolt.
Okay, go for it.
2.
Yeah.
Black Bolt. He's so stupid he cannot talk. He's basically like, the only reason he's the main character is because he is the biggest and most vaguely handsome white man that we have on the show. Lockjaw, like an idiot, just brings Black Bolt to the middle of a busy street in Honolulu. And then they just stand there and look around. And so like the thing that's terrible about Black Bolt in this episode is just like his arrogant, like, well, what is all of this face? Like the terrible, obnoxious faces, entitled faces that he makes. So he's standing in the middle of a busy street, and cars are like, "Brr," and like, you know, moving around him. And then like there's a little accident because he's standing there. And he's just standing there, and he's just like, oh, isn't this interesting? What's going on here? And it's like, dude, even animals are smart enough to get out of a busy street. Like squirrels can do this. How can you not do this? How do you not understand? Even if you don't know what cars are, like squirrels don't know what cars are. They managed to get out of the street. You're so stupid. And so he's doing these weird faces, which just indicates such like arrogance, like an absolute disinterest in humans and what they do. I feel this way about Harry Potter too, by the way. I should get into that. Someday we should do a Harry Potter thing so I can get this off my chest as well. Like the fact that the wizards in Harry Potter don't know, like they're supposed to be smart people who are studying things, like researchers. The fact that they don't know stuff that's happening in the Muggle world is insane.
Yeah.
Like anti-intellectual, like you actually walk, like you have Muggle people showing up at your school, and no one is interested in saying, "Oh, what's Muggle literature like?" It's like that. It is. So that's why I hate Harry Potter, and that's why I hate Black Bolt in this. So he's just like, he doesn't care. He's just looking around like, what's going on? He, like, a police car shows up, and he kind of like trots out of the way. Finally, he notices that other people are wearing clothes, and he is wearing an insane like black zipper leather jumpsuit.
Yeah.
So he's like, this is probably not a good idea. Walks into clothes.
Kudos. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the one. That's
yeah.
like the one thing that he realizes that is correct. I need clothes. So he walks into this very fancy clothing store where the woman helping him, unbelievably helpful. He walks in, doesn't talk. She's like, what are you looking for? And he doesn't talk. She's like, oh, you don't speak English. Well, here, let me show you this amazing suit. She gives him an amazing suit, which he puts on. Looks great. I have no problem with that suit. But then it's just like walking out of the store because he doesn't have any money, and he's the king, and he doesn't think he needs money.
So I think my suspicion is they have CNN on the moon. We know that. Like, because they're
but
watching,
they only watch floods and fires.
Yeah, but they would have to. They would hear about money. They'd know that is how things happen. My theory on that was: did you ever see the Captain America movie starring like the Salinger son?
I did not. I have not seen that yet.
Oh, Danny,
that is in my future. Yeah.
Yes.
That is probably in our future, to be honest.
Yes, it is. So a key part of that movie is Captain America in that movie steals like 4 cars. Like he just keeps stealing cars.
Like the hero that he is. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's always in a pinch, and he didn't bring transportation, so he steals cars from people.
He's in Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. So that was kind of what I was thinking, was like the writers were like, well, we can forgive him because we're being sympathetic with him in his
You're
plight
not.
of being dumped. And it doesn't feel
Not.
that way. It feels like he would
Oh my
try to
God.
do something
Yeah.
as a decent person to try and figure out how to transact
Yeah.
or what.
So
Like
it's
he would have like,
yeah.
his gold's so plentiful on the moon. Have
Oh,
this
right
kid.
here, I'll just hand you this. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
they'd be confused and be
Uh-huh.
like, "What is this? What is this like gold moon rock?"
Yeah. Instead, he's
Um,
stealing the car. He's
yeah, no,
stealing
he
the
just walks
suit.
away. Yeah,
Yeah.
he just like walks out like, "Cool, I have a new suit now." And then it's the broken arm, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
thing that is terrible. Is like a security guard is like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait, you're not supposed to do that," and like doesn't even do anything. I think like maybe like rests his arm on Black Bolt's arm and
Yeah.
is like, "Hey, hold on, dude." Black Bolt effortlessly grabs the guy's arm and breaks it with one hand. He just like twists it the way that you can in superhero movies, and it just like instantly like breaks, and the guy falls on the floor, and his arm is broken. And Black Bolt's like, I wonder what that was about, and just walks out. No interest in the guy in terrible pain lying at his feet. What the fuck? What is happening in this show? It's so bizarre. And then he just walks out on the street, and the helpful woman calls the police, and she's like, "Hey, this guy just shoplifted, and he broke the security guy's arm." So now the police is like looking for this guy who is doing absolutely nothing to evade them. He's just walking down the street. Cop car shows up, and a policeman gets out, holds a gun on him. He's like, "Hey, stop! Like, stay where you are. Get on your knees." And this is the part that drives me crazy. Is Black Bolt, like, his faces are like, "Okay, what's all right if you say so," in the most like smug, arrogant way. And like gets on his knees. He's like, "Okay, I guess I'll get on my knees." And like, "Put your arms behind your head." And he's like, "Okay, I guess I'll do that." And then again, he like the guy's trying to put handcuffs on him, and Black Bolt like takes him and flips him and breaks his arm and renders him unconscious in the middle of the street, and finds handcuffs and like opens them. He's like, "Oh, these are very useful." And like handcuffs the guy. So leaves this guy unconscious, face down in the middle of the street with handcuffs on for no reason. And then like other police cars show up, and then his face is still, it drives me crazy. His face is still like, what is going on here? Apparently people seem to be a little agitated about what I'm doing. Do you, so my question to you, and I'm sorry I just went on for like, that's a thing that's been on my chest for a long time.
I got that.
Do you have, because I'm like every second of it just makes me crazy. Like, do you have the same like kind of the feeling that I have of just like, I hate you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I think this is
I was not expecting that answer.
this is I think the problem with having a character who does not speak going on for minute after minute with their whole plan to separate everybody. They should have paired him with Karnak.
With somebody.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Like he needed somebody.
Oh, actually,
who
that would have made it a much better show.
Right.
Yeah.
They could have interpreted
Someone to
for
talk
him,
to.
you know, blah blah
Yeah.
blah. So the or even had him with Medusa, even though I get why they didn't do that. But
Yeah.
I think he was given an impossible acting challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, there's probably a few actors out there who could, like Daniel Day-Lewis would have been an amazing Black Bolt, sure. But he was given this like thing he was doing where he was supposed to be like, you're both confused, you know, you need to get away, you don't know what's going on, you're there's a coup, and you know you stick out like a sore thumb. And he as an actor, I can see him thinking about, but there's no face for that, right? There's
yes, there is. There's a face.
He can't be afraid.
There's a face that is slightly apologetic. There's the face that says, I know this probably is not working for you, but I just got to do this right now. I apologize, but I'm going there.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
Consistently is, you are all ridiculous. I'm the king of a place.
I didn't read that onto him. I read onto him. I have unsolvable things, and I think this is going to go very badly for me at every, like, I don't know if it was the right acting choice, because I thought it was a puzzling set of scenes. I agree that they gave him all of the wrong choices to make as an actor. I'm not sure. And because he wasn't speaking, we don't know. You can guess what his motivation was. But yeah, it's a very badly constructed set of scenes that they give him.
But it didn't make you hate him worse than you've hated any character.
I'm also was coming off of finishing Star Trek. So I was probably
where Anson Mount is actually decent. Yeah.
He's amazing on that. Yeah. And so I was probably projecting some of that and feeling bad for him as an actor, going, oh my God, he couldn't talk. Like, Black Bolt does not make sense. In the comics, he's always around people who like just understand
can interpret him. Yeah. And so here's this actor who I imagine is probably a fine actor, because I know that he's good in Star Trek. When he showed up, but I hate him. I hate him so much, specifically for this. And I have to say, Ryan, I love you so much. We have so much fun. Like, I believe you when you say things, and I respect you even when we disagree. This is going to be a sticking point between us that we are not going to be able to. I'm sorry. Like, we're going to move on. We're about to move on as soon as I say this. I'm just saying.
I will say, I just watched the Smallville episode he was in, because I found out he was in one when he was like a young man, and he's quite bad.
This is gonna live in me. I'm glad that you at least agreed with Encanto. I think he's terrible. I invite. So here's the thing. I invite listeners of this podcast, if there are any, go and watch episode 2 of the Inhumans and make your own decision. I thought it was the worst thing I've ever seen. And in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, when they have characters show up, and it's very exciting, you know, they have like it's Patrick Stewart from the X-Men, and here's John Krasinski looking awesome as like Mr. Fantastic. I was very excited by everything in that scene. And then fucking Anson Mount is there as Black Bolt. And I was like, oh, like I almost stood up in the theater. I was like, oh no, do not make this canon in the MCU. Are you fucking kidding me? And then there was like a fan response of like, yeah, no, we should have him back, we should do the Inhumans. And I was just like, no, oh my God,
well,
it's like my worst. It's my worst
to be his agreed upon commentary upon that character.
It's my nightmare.
Well, I think there was some agreement of like, we must never speak of Black Bolt again that shows up in that movie.
But why? Because he gets killed? They all get killed.
He self-kills himself. Like, it was an acknowledgement of how dumb that character was.
A thing that I didn't notice at the time, but I have read afterwards, is that like his costume in Doctor Strange was different. It was more like his comics costume than the one that he wore in the show. It's
comics accurate, yeah.
And so, therefore, this is actually, it's a different Black Bolt. Like, there is an Anson Mount Black Bolt who did this terrible show.
Yeah.
And then there's another Anson Mount Black Bolt, which was the one that showed up in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that probably this show and S.H.I.E.L.D. share a multiverse reality that is completely separate from the movies.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Well, isn't like Agent Carter though? Isn't Agent Carter like Agent Carter's Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. world? It's all like the ABC TV world.
Agent Carter was supposed to be a direct relation to, but because of the way Agent Carter ends on season 2, I think you can argue say it's a
different Agent
thing.
Carter than the one.
Yeah, because they basically suggest she finds love with somebody else and runs off with them at the end of season 2. So and that guy is not, if that guy was around then and Steve Rogers came wandering in, we have a whole very complicated like love triangle movie to work through.
That would actually, I mean, there's some that would be interesting. All right, so Anson Mount. So I just have to live with it, I guess. I
mean, I want to be clear. I don't think any of it's good, but I don't know if I quite read the same
he's so hateful
things onto that guy.
And then it's the same thing. So then he goes to the police station. There's a whole goddamn thing. He goes to the police station and like again is like doing dangerous things. And they all pull guns on him. He's like, okay, if you're worried about like this enormous man who can take his own handcuffs off, fine. But then actually like walks towards lockup, and he gets put in jail, as he should be, forever, is my feeling. All right. Because like I think like, oh, I didn't mention that like he destroys a police car. Like during the whole police incident, he kind of accidentally, and I'll give him that, accidentally, like he gets hit with a taser, and he's surprised, and he makes a little noise, and it like destroy the police car goes like tumble, 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 tumble. Like it's the one thing you can say about the Inhumans is like they had enough money to wreck a car. So the car goes like tumble, tumble, tumble down the street, and now that's like it's been destroyed. So it's just like everything about this is just like, okay, here's Black Bolt making things worse. He comes to Earth, things get worse, and that is going to be what happens for the entire show for every character. So, meanwhile, Medusa with her shaved red hair, and at this point, because she doesn't have the wig, you notice that she has a lavender pigs in space outfit. She is first mate Piggy.
Danny just said that while I had taking a drink of water, and I almost.
I was praying for a spit take. I was looking right at it. I was watching you drink that water, and it's just like, oh, if I do this right. I didn't quite manage it. I think the timing was just a little bit off. But you agree, right? Like
1000%.
Absolutely, yes. A pig's space outfit is lavender, like first mate Piggy, and she has like these little silver cuffs at all these different points. Okay, so there she is. And the amazing thing is she gets to Hawaii, and she's been left there by the stupid dog. And she gets on a bus. Like she's near tourists. There's like a tourist bus that has all these tourists on it. And she manages in that outfit to blend in with the tourists. When the guy is like, okay, everybody get back on the bus. She's like, okay, yeah. You hadn't saying to everyone, you haven't noticed, but this strikingly beautiful woman with red, completely shaved head and a pigs in space outfit.
Yes.
You just hadn't noticed me up until now.
This member of an 80s pop band has just joined the bus.
Sure, I guess she must have been on this bus before. I just didn't notice her.
Everybody else is wearing cargo shorts, but so that was actually when I was watching this show the first time that I started to absolutely lose my mind when I realized what it was. Yes. I was like, I'm watching a shaved-headed Medusa who will not have any powers for the run of this show get onto a tourist bus and nobody's noticing. And that was when I was just like, I think I'm dying inside. I think I gotta not finish watching this.
And so that is a moment, like I agree with you, because that is a very specific moment. And from here, like, so all of the terrible things that have happened up until this point that we've talked about so far, that is all true. But it is that moment. It is Medusa getting back on the tourist bus and nobody else noticing, where every single scene from now on, you're going to look at it and you're going to be like, well, how does that work? Like, why are they making that choice? Why do they get away with that? Like, everything from now on is going to be like that on a scene by scene basis. You're just like, well, that's crazy.
Yeah, you're 1000% correct. This was the kind of the beginning and the end, but also kind of as these scenes started to roll out, that I was like, well, this is all just going to be crap now. This is the level of writing that we're at, and kind of what we can expect now, because now they've got everybody to the island.
Yeah,
and they can basically.
This is what the show's going to be.
Yeah, it's just fish out of water. That's all this is from now on. Like, there's nothing special about these characters at this point. And
this was the point for me. Like, for you, it was, I'm going to turn this off. For me, because of my personality, I was like, I love this show more than anything in the world. I am definitely watching all 8 episodes of this because I just got to see where you're going. Amazing. The other thing with Medusa here, the other thing she does is they have these comm links, which are cute little, not very helpful iPhones. around their wrist. They use them constantly throughout the entire show.
Yeah.
And Medusa, once she gets down, calls Black Bolt, which it's like Siri. She's like, Siri, give me Black Bolt. And it rings for Black Bolt. He's in an alley somewhere in Honolulu. And she's like, Black Bolt, where are you? And he can't talk. So he can't respond in any verbal way. Like,
they didn't involve, they never figured out texting when their king doesn't have verbal communication. Or
video calls. Right. Yeah, you would think, like, he is the all-powerful
He
emperor.
wouldn't be like, ADA is a thing on Attilan, and we're gonna deal with it. Like
all tech, I hadn't really realized this, but you're totally right. Like, all technology and culture would be bending around the idea that our emperor can't speak.
Right.
And so we have to make sure, for example, that you don't access the comlink by speaking to it. How does Black Bolt call Medusa when he wants to? Yeah. It is entirely voice activated. And so, like, and he can't. So she's talking to him and she's like, are you okay? Where are you? Are you alive? Just do something. And like, and he can't do anything because these people are insane. And so what he does is he puts it up to his heart and she hears the heartbeat, which is disgusting. All right. But worse, like the worst thing that happens here is that then she hears traffic. And she's like, oh, is that traffic? You're in the city. Great. I'll go to the city and try and find you.
Mm-hmm.
How does she know what? Black Bolt doesn't know what traffic is because he several times have been walking around in the middle of it and acting like it's a completely new experience for him.
So, character note on Medusa, huge fan of the Fast and the Furious franchise. That's how she knows. She goes down at
because
night.
She's in the Fast and the Furious.
She loves those movies. She goes down to the little
it.
scrying pool and has the two like
she watches
oracles.
Formula One.
Yeah. They show her the Fast and the Furious movie. She's like, got it.
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
they also all speak
American
accented English, but yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean that you just gotta ignore that. But that really bothered me. Like, he very specifically in this episode does not know what traffic is. And she does. That made me happy. All right. So that's Medusa. Everything like this from now on. Karnak. Terrible Karnak. Vile Karnak.
Hilariously.
Always sweaty and unhappy for some reason. Lockjaw leaves him on like a mountain for some reason. Like at the top of a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
What's his next move, Ryan? What does he do? This man who can plan anything and see the weakness in any plan.
He does not take the gentle slope going downward.
No, he does not.
Nope.
Behind him. Nope.
Should they show?
Oh yeah, there is one. Obviously, that's how the actor got there.
Yeah. So yeah, he starts going down the cliff and
he scales this sheer cliff.
Yeah. And then bounces all the way down, landing on his little noggin. And then I forgot about him for like, I guess the rest
That's
of
basically
the
only thing that happens to him in the entire episode. It's just like he tries to scale down the cliff and he falls and he bangs his head and then he just wanders around aimlessly.
So the rest of this show is actually his death hallucination.
Well, the thing that I love about that is I'm like, okay, well, so now I've seen one head injury on the screen. Like, clearly everyone in this show has had multiple head injuries. This is the only one that we've seen.
Oh my God. Yeah.
It's amazing.
And the thing that made me so mad about it when I saw it was I immediately extrapolated from the shaved head thing. Yeah. Like, they're taking away his power now.
Yes,
which was the one they could do without doing any special effects. Now he's just a guy.
I mean, there are these little, I actually think that he has these little effects that are like yellow lines appear. It's very cheap effects. So it should have been inexpensive for them to keep doing. Where like he sees all these lines and arrows and stuff. And so that helps him figure out like exactly this would do that. But it doesn't work. Like, he tries to use it. They do the effects, but it doesn't really help him. Also, this is me just being a nerd, but he looks up at the sun and he makes this little compass with his powers, and he's like north, south, east, west. And I was like, did they have directions like that on the moon?
No.
Do they have a North Pole on the moon?
I mean, they do, but inside of, does that make any difference inside of their little city? That would be about the size of a high school campus. I mean,
it's the weird thing. It's the weird thing of like Medusa knows traffic and Karnak knows like the directions. These people who they've specifically told us they know nothing about Earth.
yeah, don't want to know anything about Earth.
Yeah, because they're superior to us. Okay, so next superior guy up on the roster, Gorgon.
This storyline is insane. Like I don't understand who wrote this down and went, nailed it. Let's put this on television. Let's get cameras and actors and like a light and a mic, and we're going to record this, and then we're going to edit it, and then someone's going to air this on TV.
On television. Honestly, like, so when I read the thing on Wikipedia about like ABC had concerns about the script, I was like, Gorgon. Totally. Yeah. So Gorgon, so like what is going to happen in all of these stories is that the terrible Inhuman is going to meet some people, like either one person or multiple people. And that person is going to instantly fall in love and bond with them and become their little friend that like risks everything in order to help them. For Gorgon, it is a group of native Hawaiian surfing dudes. Gorgon is the stupidest one. Like, he has no ability to reason or plan. He just has hooves and he's strong. And the first thing that he does on making landfall on a beach is he walks into the ocean. He has no one has experience with water on the moon, with oceans. He just walks into it and just like tries to see what it's like. And then he drowns.
Yeah.
He drowns. A wave comes up and we see him way below the surface of the water. No idea that you could even like paddle up. Like, he's just sinking through the water.
Yeah.
Even a dog that you throw into the ocean would be able to swim with no ocean experience, would try. You throw a cat into the ocean.
I will say this. I have been only to Maui, sorry. And I have been on a beach where even I'm about 6'5", my height head of my but I wasn't even that far out. And the waves were basically came in, surprised me, picked me up.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And all that. So, but that's what I thought about when he was heading, because that dude with his big boots on was probably about 6'4".
Right. He's very heavy, clearly.
And he starts heading towards the water. And I was like, oh, they're going to have him drown.
Yeah.
Immediately. But there was so part of this whole thing is he's looking for Triton, who is the one Inhuman who does not look basically human. He's like a green fish guy. Face. And I remembered him from the comics. It's like, oh my God, they're going to include Triton. And then when you see Triton in episode 1, he gets shot and killed within the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And so he's, for some reason, thinks that if he shouts at the pounding Hawaiian surf and walks into what is clearly, they would know from just looking out the window at the Earth covers 3/4 of the planet.
Yeah.
He's gonna find him.
He's gonna find him.
Like it's so stupid. It's just so
great.
lazy.
I know, it's
and
so
weird
dumb.
and dumb.
Yeah. And also just like the thing that they're trying to do of like that Inhumans, again, like this is a worldview that no one questions, that Inhumans are superior to humans.
Yeah.
Humans can swim.
Yeah.
No, I don't have a voice that destroys everything that I'm in front of, but I can swim. So then here come these surfers who dive down, pick him up, pull him onto a surfboard, take him back to shore. And now there is this group of magical Hawaiian surfers. These guys, did you ever watch The White Lotus, by the way?
I never did.
It's a really fun show. It's a great show. It also has like a group of magical, friendly Hawaiian surfers who like adopt a white person and then like he's just their buddy forever. So they take him back to the beach and they talk to him. And then they encourage him to fight.
Mhm.
He says, like, there's a coup. My family was torn apart, and I have to like fight these people. There are people coming for me. And I can't wait to be in that fight and to fight them. And the surfers, unlike surfer dudes should be, they're like, we'll bring the fight to you. We'll help you.
We also
Why?
happen to be apparently like a militant faction.
Yeah,
living-
they have all been in, it can't be Vietnam. What did they say? They've all been in some kind of
Yeah,
battle.
they had all been in the military some way
Yeah, so these are like laid back Hawaiian surfers who own machine guns
and are willing to kill.
and are willing to kill. And they're like, cool. And so Gorgon calls Maximus on his little comlink. He calls the moon and he's like, hey, I'm leaving my comlink on. Come and get me. And Maximus, honestly, my feeling was Maximus up on the moon should have been like, okay, dude, you're actually not my priority. You and your little beach, your little beach friends, leave your comlink on. That's great. I'll be with you at some future date.
Yeah, he's out. He's completely what's the word I'm looking for? But he's just not a factor anymore in anything that's happening.
He's isolated. He's just a dumb guy, strong guy with hooves.
Yeah, if the dog
standing in sand
is not on the moon, and I think the dog's neutralized at this point.
The dog has been like, I don't know what.
He's gone to sleep.
Somehow. Yeah.
And so now you really do just have. And so what if he comes back to the moon? The dude has hoofs. Like those are like, oh my God, the guy's wearing tap shoes. Look out! Like it's just not a problem. And he's not smart. They make it very clear he's not a smart man.
No, and apparently nobody. He's the head of the Royal Guards, but the Royal Guards all seem to be following Maximus just fine.
Yeah, and he seems completely surprised by this.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's because you're an idiot. Gorgon.
You're stupid. They've specifically showed us that you're stupid.
So if your
like,
Royal
right,
Guard is willing to
bitch.
overthrow what's basically the safety patrol of like your high school on the moon, something's gone very wrong with your culture. Like everyone turns on you on a dime.
Oh yeah, no, that's right. There's no freedom fighters who try to protect the family. Everyone is just like, okay, Maximus actually makes some good points.
It's not going to make any difference to us. We're not going to be digging any deeper holes. So
right, yeah, we're being oppressed in this terrible caste system. We'll do whatever. Clearly. So Gorgon is there. So he's on the beach. So the problem is the Hawaiians. He's on the beach, and he says to the surfers, like, you guys should leave. Why would we leave? And he says, because when they come, they're going to come right here. And when they do, there's going to be some serious trouble. And the lead Hawaiian says, who doesn't like a little trouble? Okay, but it's superpowered aliens with guns, though. What are you doing? Why are these magic indigenous friends willing to just risk their lives for this obvious dumbass? Amazing.
I'm not sure if we've gotten through all the characters yet, but one of the things that I did not get,
We've got a couple more,
is we've covered the king and we've covered the queen.
Yeah.
This movie or this show in theory takes place after Avengers.
Yes.
So it's within that same universe in theory. So they should be aware that there was an alien invasion from not Sakaar, from wherever it was from.
Yes.
And at some point, they're like, okay, so there is S.H.I.E.L.D. as well that exists to deal with very strange things.
Yes.
So they might know about that if they watch their CNN. And at this point, what I would think you would want to do is just go to like City Hall and say, you're going to probably want to arrest me. You're not going to believe me, but I'm from the moon and I'm an alien and I can prove it.
Yeah.
And
well, no, you can prove it by like, here, I have hooves.
Yeah, I have hoofs. If I open my mouth, I can knock over a cop car. The lady with the red hair can't prove shit right now, but you know, and
Oh, and they're in Hawaii,
That
and
to
we are
me is an
yeah.
interesting story of
Yes,
like what
of them just trying
happens.
to
Like, let's actually act like how people would if you were like the king of Mongovia or something, and you found yourself stranded in like Oklahoma. What would your first steps be? It wouldn't be
stand
to
in the
like
middle of traffic,
stand in the middle of traffic and then go steal some clothing. Like you
break
would
somebody's arm.
probably be like, I should probably try and find someone in charge one way
Is
or
there an
another.
embassy? Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there an
Um,
embassy in Oklahoma that someone I can talk to?
hey, there's going to be a consulate somewhere, right? But
Yeah.
you're at least going to
No, they couldn't give a shit.
no. The writers were just like, no, that's not what we're doing. We're
Yeah.
going to scatter them all over the place, and everyone's going to act like a dumbass lunatic for the 8 episodes of this show.
So that brings us to NASA and Louise.
Okay.
It is not actually NASA. They actually, I thought that it was, and had a whole bunch of jokes, which I'm still going to do, about NASA. This is actually, they say in like episode 3 or 4 that this is actually like a SpaceX company,
Yeah.
owned by a billionaire. So they've got a moon rover. Like the people who made the moon rover, it's not actually NASA, but it's like this billionaire's space company. But no matter what, Louise, what we see of this place is that there's a bunch of big screens and some desks, maybe 10 people in a completely empty warehouse space.
Yeah.
This is the other set that people talk about when they say how ridiculous this show is. It's like the brutalist parking garage. It's Crystal's like terrible IKEA apartment. And then this, which is just like, this is where the budget entirely ran out. And they could not figure out anything to do. So it's just like a big television screen in front of Louise, and she's sitting at a like in a chair at a desk. And that's the entire set. The rest of the set is just like empty warehouse space.
It would have made more sense to rewrite it as her dealing with footage sitting in an office somewhere.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They didn't even build an office. Yeah. And they're acting like this is NASA. So that's why, I thought that it was NASA, because they're like, they've got their own moon rover, which they're monitoring. And they've got like data coming in. And so this is Louise. Louise is blonde and she has glasses and she's funny. And I like her. This is actually the only character that I like in the show. Because she's the only one who makes jokes. And so it really, the only thing is like, there's Louise and there's her super mean boss. And those are the only people that matter in this entire organization. She saw the moon rover get stepped on by a hoof. And the mean boss is like, what do you mean it's a hoof? Are you really like, and then she sees like 4 energy flashes, which, as with anything in movies and TV, as soon as somebody says the word energy, like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
These magical flashes from the moon that somehow she can tell from whatever equipment is in front of her went from the moon to Honolulu 4 times, which is like lockjaw going back and forth. And so the mean boss is like, she's saying like there's something traveled between that place and Earth. And so I wrote this down. I like this, that the mean boss says like, so what you're suggesting is our creature with the hooves and 3 of his buddies smashed our rover, and now they've come to visit us on Earth. And Louis says, well, I don't know if they're buddies, which I thought was funny. Like, that's a funny line.
Yeah, that was actually a good line.
And that makes me happy. That makes me like her. I looked up the actress. Her name is Ellen Woglum. And this is one of her very last roles.
Oh.
She was like in a TV movie after this, and that's it. I think she's fantastic. I would love to see her in something else.
She, I feel like there was a thing the CW was doing where they had like the Chloe Sullivan in Smallville and then Felicity Smoke in Arrow. And you kind of needed to have that character.
This
And
like
some of them,
funny, sarcastic woman character.
yeah, it could be a male too. It's like the Flash had geez, whoever
Like his little
Vibe
friend.
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that this was going to be that for them. Like we need someone who's going to help them along, who's smart, can access resources later for the characters, those
Yeah.
sorts of things. I thought she was going to be the bad guy the first two episodes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then the third episode, I was like, "Oh, okay, I get it. I get what they're
No,
doing
she's
with
that. So
this."
like the Hawaiian surfers are with Gorgon, Louise is going to attach herself onto Medusa and consider Medusa's problems like something that she's going to throw away her entire life for. She's going to commit crimes. She's going to run from the police. She will do anything on Medusa's behalf. But she makes jokes.
Yes,
and that's why she's the
and I
best
think they're trying to do a straight man, like funny person thing with her and Medusa, and I'm not sure
she's a sidekick.
Serinda Swan understands her part in that.
No, she does not.
Yeah.
But Ellen Waglam really, I think so. Anyway, I think she's great. But all of this, like, and so the mean boss is like, okay, I know that you're brilliant, like, but you're also kind of nutty, and it looks like the nuttiness is taking too much space. Because he just thinks it's utterly ridiculous. This is another one of these like pointless arrogance moments where it's utterly ridiculous, the thought that anything could be on the moon that we don't know about, that anything could travel between the moon and the Earth. And it's 2017. It's after the Avengers. Earth already knows that there are aliens. Lots of aliens. This is Earth knows about Asgard
You're right.
at this point. And this is post-Avengers, so S.H.I.E.L.D. exists. In fact, the Inhumans were introduced on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right.
And so here's Louise saying the most innocent thing, which is, I'm looking at data that says that something traveled between the moon and Earth. And that is nutty, and like that on its own is nutty enough.
If there's one thing scientists will not look at, it's data.
It's data, right? Oh, yeah, because this mean boss, like, he's not a scientist. He's clearly just like
He's a bureaucrat. He's
the
a
head of
pusher.
the temps. Yeah, he's like,
Yeah.
I'm not telling the people upstairs that you see something. You see data. Yeah.
We're not going to say we're doing our due diligence after we had an anomaly in the data.
Yeah. So she's nutty, and now she has to leave. And so but thank goodness, like it's the one thing, like she actually has a character.
She does. It feels a little bit like a character imported from another show, just because everybody else seemed to get
no one
the
else
memo.
has a sense of humor. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone else is like, this is that weird network hour-long drama, completely like, we'll do a joke at the end to kind of cap it off at the end of the episode, but
everything else is dead serious.
Yeah, everything else is dead serious. Yeah, or something kind of joke shaped, but it's always kind of like the character just kind of saying something funny but they're really sad. Like that's the only other form of jokes you do in those hour-long dramas. So
no, Louise is for real legit funny.
Yeah.
And so like I was thinking, part of my quest here was to see, like, is this worse or better than 2015 Fantastic Four? Which so far for the two of us, when we've been watching Marvel stuff, like that is the absolute basement. Like nothing is worse than 2015 Fantastic Four. And the one thing that I was thinking like might actually put the Inhumans under it is that in 2015 Fantastic Four, there's one character that we like, which is Victor. Like the Victor character is funny, and I like looking at him. And I was like, I don't recall in the Inhumans show that there's anybody that I like. But then I saw this and I was like, oh, Louise is funny too. So this is currently tied.
I think it's maybe a tie, or this is worse for me.
Yeah, it's hard. We're going to explore this.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, because the Fantastic Four, like the thing that was so terrible is that they just made a choice that was just clearly the wrong choice, which is to have to take it so seriously and to like basically put them all in government torture chambers for the last half of the movie. And this also has made some terrible choices.
Well, I mean, I think the closest thing I could compare it to is if this is Inhumans, no one really has strong feelings about the Inhumans, but my friend
Yeah.
Randy. Like, shout out to Randy out there, buddy.
Oh, we should get Randy on the show
Oh God,
next episode.
I could just imagine him just laughing his way through this whole thing.
Sure.
So it'd be like if you were like, okay, I'm finally going to see an X-Men movie, and you showed up, and there's Wolverine, and there's Angel, and there's Cyclops, and Jean Grey,
Yeah.
and Beast. He's all blue and furry,
Yeah.
and they're like, we flipped this switch. No one has powers, and now you're in Cleveland. You're in Cincinnati.
Yeah,
you're in
this is
Pittsburgh.
Cyclops, and Cyclops is just a guy.
Yeah, and you're like, what is
What am I
this?
looking
Like the whole thing of Inhumans is that they're on the moon and they're all together and it's how they interact as a family.
And they have powers. Yeah.
Yeah, and you said this is not, was a really kind of 90s vibe, that like the approach to this, which is kind
Yeah.
of how I remember like anything that got adapted in the 90s always felt like it was like, well, we can't really afford to do what is in the comic or whatever, so we're going to
Right.
give it, this weird vibe to it and just strip it down. And you get no like what's at stake, who cares, because you've never seen this society. Like we've already talked about how seems like Maximus is right.
Yeah, it looks like shit.
Yeah. So what is the status quo of the society that's so amazing that we should be invested in trying to?
Yeah, that we need to go back and
save?
protect it somehow.
Like, who are these people before all of this happens? You never see it. All you see 20 seconds of the royal couple like post coitus. Like it's
Right. Or a little like there's a couple very, very brief like outside shots which look like community college, like whatever Hawaii community college there was.
I think they filmed it at one. I'm not kidding.
I know that's what it looks
Yeah.
like. Yeah. It's just like there's a little college campus for a second.
Yeah.
It's
It's the weirdest.
It's insane.
And in some ways, I can't believe Marvel didn't just shelve it. Like they could have not let anybody see this.
They thought we don't have the X-Men and we need something. And they thought that this was going to be somehow, if we can get anything out of this, that maybe this is the next X-Men. But you watch this show and you're like thinking this is the next X-Men. It's like, no, it's real not the next X-Men.
Yeah.
I think there's one more thing that we need to discuss with this episode, and then we can close it out. Oren.
Right.
Oren. So there's this lady, very mean lady on the moon. And this mean moon lady is like, I don't know, Maximus is like, I don't know if second in command or like watchdog or something. Anyway, the dynamic is Maximus tells her, go to the Earth, find the royal family, and kill them.
And right. I was trying to remember how she got there, but now I remember. Yeah, okay.
The Wall, the guy. This is actually the reason why we have to talk. Is the guy who is the Wall. So Oren she's just like the leather-clad, very self-assured lady.
She's your video game character you'd see the butt of the whole time running in front of you with the machine gun. She's
very self-assured. So she's gonna go to Earth, and she's like, and Maximus says, like, do you need other people to go with you? Do you need any equipment? Do you need whatever? And she's like, no, I'm cool. It's better for me to just go alone and like go under the radar. This does not turn out to be correct. And so she goes. And so this is the one other time that we see the Flintstones, like the Inhuman with a power that people use. And it's a guy who is a wall.
Yeah, it's a hell of a life this guy's living. he shouldn't
like,
be
you
going
just
like,
walk into
kill me.
It's really bizarre. She walks into this dark room, which is part of this like parking garage complex. So there's nothing in it. There's no adornment. There's no even lights or anything. It's terrible. She walks into this room and she's like, hey, dude. And out of the wall in front of her, this guy's face kind of emerges in like a stone face.
Yeah.
A CGI stone face on this wall. And he's like, what? And she says, send me to Earth. This is apparently, if you don't have a stupid teleporting dog, the only way that they have to get to Earth is this wall guy. And so she says, like, let me go to Earth. And he says, I don't want to because it hurts.
Yeah.
And she's like, I don't care if it hurts. I'm going to kill all of your family if you don't use your magic wall power and send me to Earth. And so he's like, fine. And then like the wall kind of opens up, like the bricks kind of open up to create a little opening. And she walks through it and then it closes again. And somehow the guy who is a wall sends her to Earth, sends her to Hawaii, and drops her lockjaw style in a completely random place.
So I have some recommendations for the. I mean, one, every time someone comes in, go kill me, please kill me.
I know
I'm a
this guy is
wall.
clearly unhappy.
Yeah. So
The only useful thing the only time anyone talks to him is when they're like, "Hey, why don't you teleport me to Earth?"
so
And it hurts.
one, she can't get back. So this is a
No,
non-starter
but
of
she
a plan.
does. But she does. They go back and forth several times.
Yeah. So part B, if someone threatens your whole family and they're like, by the way, I'm going to completely disappear and no one's going to know where I'm at after I pass
Yeah.
through you,
Yeah.
you send them right to the heart of the sun. Like,
it's so hard to tell why. Like, because they clearly need a device
yeah.
that sends people back and forth between the moon and the Earth. Like, there's a lot of plot that depends on sending people back and forth. Like, not just there, but then Oren later, next episode or so, comes back and then goes again with a bunch more people. Like, that's important to the plot that you can actually get back and forth. And they never explain, like, if you got to talk to this wall guy and threaten him and his family to get you to Earth, how do they come back?
Yeah.
What do they do? What does Oren do? No idea. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's awesome.
No.
So the grumpy wall guy like sends her to Earth. Now she has said, I don't need any more people. I don't need any more equipment. It's just me and my fists and my like leather jumpsuit. And she gets there and she's in the middle of nowhere. And she looks around and she looks at her comm link, which says like, oh, Medusa is somewhere else. And she starts to run.
Yeah.
You didn't even send her with transportation. Why does she think?
Take a skateboard.
She doesn't even get on a tourist bus. She just
No.
runs. She's just gonna run and run and run and run.
That's her
and get to
power. Happily running.
And she finds her amazingly. So Medusa in her lavender pigs in space outfit gets off the bus, like has broken her comm link so that she can't be tracked, and leaves that on the bus. But then stays there in the parking lot. So when Oren comes in to find her, she like goes onto the bus, kills the bus driver, finds the broken comm link. She's like, oh man, Medusa must be somewhere, she must be blah, blah. She must be like real far away or something. No, Medusa's actually standing behind the bus waiting for you to show up. And then they have the typical movie kickboxing fight.
Yeah.
Medusa doesn't have powers because her hair is shaved. Oren doesn't have powers because she's just a mean lady. And
yeah.
And they just do the thing of like the super powered fist fight where like I hit you and you go, oh, and you like slam against a car. So they're in a parking lot. This is also like a budget thing. Like they're in a parking lot and they have enough budget to have a character like land on a windshield and have the windshield break. And that is the extent of the budget. Like after that, nothing can get broken.
Yeah,
I'm
no cars
impressed.
get flipped. Yeah.
No, I'm impressed. In this episode, in episode 2, they break 2 automobiles. That's their effects budget, is 2 cars. But they have this fist fight, and then Medusa stabs Oren with a knife in the gut. And then leaves her there and runs away. And that is the end of episode 2.
And she apparently doesn't know Oren's power, which seems like...
I don't know Oren's power. Oh, Oren's power. Oh, right. Oren's power is that she can heal herself.
Yeah, which seems
we
like
find that out in
something
the next
like,
episode.
hey, I'm the queen. There's only 1,400 people. I happen to have like how many assassins do you really need if you're running a high
Right.
school? You need maybe one or two. So
Yeah.
you're going to kind of know what they do, right? You're going to want to know why that person was an assassin.
And in the Royal Guard or something. Like, she clearly has some kind of title.
Like, you got to know at that point, I got to throw this chick into a grill or something, and I got to get rid of her. But
It's amazing.
yeah, something she's not going to come back from. But yeah, it's just, I saw her get stabbed in the gut, and I was like, oh God, they're going to have a stinger at the end where she pops back to life. And
Which,
sure
of course,
enough,
yeah.
I was like, ugh.
Of course they do.
But
This is, I know I say this every single time, but nobody's fighting crime. This
that's
is yet
right.
another. There's an excuse every single time, but I think, what is this, like our sixth? I think we talked about like 5 movies maybe, and this is our 6th thing. In every single one of them, the superhero does not fight crime.
I mean, in all fairness, Inhumans is
Never
really
occurs.
Inhumans is not a superhero thing, right? It's a sci-fi concept.
I'm just saying.
That was part of a show about like interdimensional.
But that's the thing.
explorers.
Everybody has an excuse.
Yeah.
All of these like every single time you're like, well, but she's an assassin. She's not really like a street level crime fighter. Like, yeah, superheroes fight crime.
It'd be nice to see them do something good other than try and save their
other than like
hides.
make things worse, which is what they do.
I think that's all we should talk about for this episode.
I was just gonna say, like, superheroes every day. It's at superheroeseveryday.com. It's a very funny blog. If you had any kind of a good time listening to this ridiculous show, please come and get me. I do this kind of thing on the regular on my blog.
He does. It's highly enjoyable. I think we kind of neglected to talk about the kid who can see the future, so we'll need to talk about him, who is apparently like a high school thespian.
The most ridiculous thing. We've talked about all the ridiculous things in this movie or in this television show. The most ridiculous thing is that you told me we were going to have to go slow, or we were going to have to go fast and just do like 4 episodes in this episode. And you have been right there with me every step of the way.
Yes, because there's so much to talk about.
This is what I'm saying.
So we'll be continuing to talk about
Inhumans
for what's gonna be 4 episodes now. I can tell you. And we will be back soon.
Yes.
All right. That about wraps it up for this edition of The Signal Watch, a production of the League of Melbotus. Thanks for sticking with us. If you enjoyed the podcast, we invite you to drop on by the Signal Watch blog, where you'll find write-ups of a wide variety of movies and more. We'd love to hear from you, so find us online and let us know what you think. Whether you prefer email, blog comments, or social media, we'll be happy to hear from you. We'll be back soon with more exceedingly high-quality content. So, until next time, God damn it, babies, you've got to be kind.